Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the absolutely deadly, high-stakes puzzle at the center of the Hawthorne estate. I want you to picture this for a second. You are a destitute teenager. You're scraping by, literally sleeping in your car, and hustling games of chess in the park just to win a free breakfast. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, a man you have never even met dies and leaves you his entire fortune. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, it's not a fairy tale. It is a trap. Today we are breaking down the intricate, twisted, and deeply psychological web of the inheritance games. We're going to treat this like the true crime thriller it really is. We'll be mapping out the clues, spotting the red flags, and analyzing the shocking manipulation tactics engineered by a mastermind from beyond the grave.
Just imagine waking up one day to find out an absolute stranger just left you over $46 billion. Instantly, that paints a massive glowing target right on your back. Yes, billion with a B. Tobias Hawthorne wasn't just rich, he was the richest man in Texas, a man whose wealth was so vast it essentially rewrote the laws of physics for anyone in his orbit. When our protagonist, Avery Grams, inherits this unimaginable sum, she doesn't just get mansions and private jets. No, she inherits a violently angry, deeply suspicious family who have just been entirely disinherited. And let me tell you, they are not going to let a total stranger take their birthright without a brutal fight.
Now, consider this chilling quote from Grayson Hawthorne. He's the grandson who was practically groomed from birth to take over the empire. He is looking right at Avery, his eyes just like ice, entirely convinced she is a master manipulator running some sort of long con. Think about the intense psychological pressure here. Put yourself in Avery's shoes for a minute. You have literally no idea why you are there, but the people with all the power, all the resources, and all the motive to destroy you, they are absolutely convinced you are the villain of their story.
So, the absolutely crucial point we are going to explore today is this. How do you survive a family of brilliant, dangerous suspects who view you as either a con artist or just a pawn in a twisted game? Hawthorne House isn't a home. Honestly, it's a shark tank. Every single interaction is calculated. Every smile hides a threat. Avery has to navigate an environment where stepping out of line could literally cost her her life. And the crazy part? Her only potential allies are the very people who benefit the most if she ends up dead.
Okay, Section 1, the billion-dollar mystery. Let's start by looking at the totally baffling circumstances that set this trap in motion.
Before all this madness, Avery is just a destitute teenager trying to survive high school, which makes it completely incomprehensible why Tobias Hawthorne, a Texas billionaire she has never crossed paths with, left her his entire fortune. Overnight, her whole reality just fractures. One day she's dodging her sister's volatile ex-boyfriend Drake and stressing over a perfect grade in physics just to get a scholarship. The next day, she is thrust into a sprawling, Gothic Texas estate. And here's the kicker, she is required by the ironclad will to live there for a year alongside the furious, disinherited family. If she leaves, she gets absolutely nothing. It is the ultimate locked room scenario, except the room is a billionaire's mega mansion.
Moving on to Section 2, a house of suspects. Let's profile the highly dangerous family Avery is forced to live with. This is where the psychology gets really fascinating.
Think of this as our suspect board. We've got a family equipped with infinite resources and clear motives to eliminate the stranger who stole everything from them. First, you have Grayson, the icy heir apparent. Then Jameson, the thrill seeker who basically treats Avery like a shiny new puzzle box he needs to pry open. You've got Xander, the brilliant and kind of chaotic inventor. Nash, the eldest brother, who outright warns Avery she's like a glass ballerina about to shatter. And then there are the daughters, Zara and Sky, whose silent, calculating fury practically drips off them. They are all brilliant, they are all damaged, and they are all trapped in this house together with her.
Jameson's chilling observation here really reveals the core dynamic. These boys have all been trained to play their grandfather's manipulative games since they were in diapers, and Avery? She's just the latest piece on the board. Tobias Hawthorne didn't just raise his grandsons, he weaponized them. He taught them that literally everything is a puzzle, a code, or a hidden message. Jameson doesn't even see Avery as a person, he sees her as a clue to be deciphered. To survive this, Avery has to realize she isn't just playing a game, she is the game. Which brings us to Section 3, riddles, traps, and clues. Let's see how this intense psychology translates into the physical evidence left behind by the deceased billionaire.
To truly understand why Avery was chosen, we have to look at the meticulous, step-by-step forensic breadcrumbs Tobias Hawthorne left hidden inside his massive library. It starts with this seemingly random book, a super rare first edition of Faust. But it's not about the text itself, it's about a piece of red acetate film hidden elsewhere in the estate, which, when you lay it over the pages, reveals these tiny circled words, "Where there's a will." Tobias is literally leading them on a scavenger hunt from beyond the grave, proving that this inheritance wasn't just some random whim, it was a highly orchestrated, deeply calculated plot.
And the house itself? It's a weaponized labyrinth. Avery has to navigate dark, hidden passageways behind sliding closet walls just to chase down the next clue. Actually, scratch that, it's not just a house, it's more like a living, breathing puzzle box. Behind the walls, there are hidden gears and secret panels. There are hidden tunnels that even the head of security doesn't know about, and compartments that only open if you know exactly where to apply pressure. Avery is literally stumbling in the dark, following Jameson into these hidden corridors, realizing that the walls literally have eyes. It's a panopticon designed by a mad genius.
Section 4. The assassination attempt. Because, yeah, the game quickly turns lethal when the theoretical danger explodes into literal, physical violence.
When shots ring out in the woods, the family's security team actually uses Avery as bait to uncover a terrifying truth about who was really pulling the strings. Initially, it looks pretty straightforward. Drake, the violent, low-level threat from Avery's old life, just snapped. The cops find a rifle in his trunk, it's neat, it's tidy, case closed, right? But the reality is far more disturbing. Avery realizes there is no way Drake could have navigated the massive, highly secured Hawthorne estate all by himself. Someone gave him access. Someone on the inside unlocked the doors. This shocking admission proves that a member of the Hawthorne inner circle orchestrated the hit, leveraging a violent outsider to do their dirty work. Rebecca, a girl closely tied to the Hawthorne family's tragic past, drops this massive bombshell on Avery. Suddenly, all of Avery's paranoia is entirely justified. The call didn't just come from inside the house. The shooter was guided through the house's very veins by someone Avery probably eats breakfast with. This instantly elevates the entire situation from a bitter legal dispute straight to a murder conspiracy. Now for Section 5, the ghost of Emily. To find the real mastermind here, we have to dig up a tragedy from the Hawthorne family's past that hangs over the entire estate like a shroud. The timeline of these secrets is seriously chilling. Right after Emily's death, Tobias Hawthorne started keeping meticulous files, deep background checks, and hundreds of photographs of Avery, tracking her every move from childhood. We discover that Emily Laughlin, a girl both Grayson and Jameson loved deeply, died tragically on the estate at the Westbrook. So Avery wasn't just picked out of a phone book on a whim. She was carefully, obsessively vetted as part of a long-term strategy. This completely proves her involvement was planned long before Tobias's death.
Jameson's devastating confession to Grayson exposes the immense guilt tearing these brothers apart. It's a fracture their grandfather knew he had to fix. You see, the tension between the brothers isn't just about the money. It's about a deep, rotting guilt. Grayson blames himself for leaving Emily's side when she died, but Jameson finally admits the horrible, unspoken truth. He was there, he hid, and he watched her die without helping. This dark secret completely destroyed their bond, turning them into bitter rivals who are emotionally stunted by their grief.
Section 6. Why Avery was chosen. We finally reach the climax of our investigation, the true reason Avery Grams inherited the world. And let me tell you, it is an absolute masterclass in psychological manipulation. Avery's purpose was to be a living, breathing Rube Goldberg machine. She was literally designed to bleed out the poison in the Hawthorne family before it destroyed them completely. Tobias Hawthorne knew his grandsons were broken by Emily's death. He knew he couldn't just sit them down and fix them with a simple conversation. So, what does a billionaire mastermind do? He builds a puzzle so complex and so high stakes that they would be forced to work together to solve it. Avery was the catalyst. She was the devil he didn't know, dropped directly into the center of their lives to shake up the board and force all their dark secrets to the surface.
He literally used a teenage girl as a human wrench in the works of his own family's dysfunction.
But here is the absolute most mind-bending piece of evidence in this whole story. It lies right in Avery's full name, meticulously arranged on wooden tiles to prove that this was never, ever an accident. When Avery finds the final clue box, it spells out her name. And when you rearrange those letters, it forms a perfect anagram. Avery Kylie Grams rearranges to spell a very risky gamble. Let that sink in. A secret hidden in plain sight since the very day she was born. It proves that Tobias Hawthorne's reach didn't just span across the country, it spanned across time, intertwining her destiny with his family long before she ever played her first game of chess in that park.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. In a world where absolute power corrupts absolutely, are we just players or are we the game itself? Avery thought she won the lottery, but the reality is she was drafted into a war she didn't even understand. She survived the first round, for sure, but the board is just resetting. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the brilliant, chilling logic of the...
A teenager inherits a multi-billion-dollar estate from a complete stranger. But inside the mansion walls, she discovers a far more dangerous inheritance. The billionaire's son, believed to have died in a fire 20 years ago, is still alive. The heirs are caught in a cycle of manipulation. Avery is the sudden target, while the Hawthorne brothers fall into predictable roles. Jameson, the thrill-seeker who can't ignore a mystery, and Grayson, the protector who uses emotional distance to survive. Tobias Hawthorne Sr. left a game his grandsons thought they had already won. Instead, he hid a 20-year-old cold case inside older, alternate versions of his will, ensuring the truth would only surface after he was gone. The estate wasn't a gift. It was a mechanism designed to force the Hawthornes to confront the lies that built their empire. Following her mother's funeral, Avery spent her weeks playing chess in the park with a homeless man she called Harry. She purposefully won their matches just so she could buy him breakfast without wounding his pride. Harry was a disguise. He was actually Toby Hawthorne, the missing heir, living in self-imposed exile for 2 decades. Tobias Hawthorne Sr. had been watching Avery since she was 6 years old. If Toby was in that park, it means the billionaire spent years orchestrating their connection long before he wrote Avery into his final will. Toby's presence in Avery's life suggests their meeting wasn't a coincidence. It raises the central question of the entire inheritance. What was the real relationship between Avery's mother and the Hawthorne family? To find Toby, Avery must retrace a path Tobias originally designed for his daughters. It was a test of reconciliation that Zara and Sky failed years ago. Every object serves a purpose. This gold wedding ring left to Zara and the white powder in this vial are the keys to reading the invisible ink hidden on a blank page. Jameson pursues these revelations with a frantic energy. He treats the investigation like a hit of adrenaline, ignoring the personal cost as he chases the next high. Grayson responds with a rigid sense of duty. He treats Avery like an objective to be secured, using his grandfather's rules to shield himself from the actual emotions of the case. Tobias Hawthorne Sr. designed this journey to exploit the foundational cracks in his grandsons, ensuring they would move exactly where he wanted them to go. 20 years ago, a fire on Hawthorne Island claimed the lives of 3 people. One of them was a local girl named Kaylee Rooney, whom the press and the Hawthornes used as a scapegoat for the tragedy. Toby faked his death to escape the guilt of that night. He abandoned his name and his fortune because he couldn't live with his role in the fire. Avery discovers unsent postcards that reveal a hidden history. They document a romance between Toby and a woman he loved too much to bring back into the Hawthorne circle. This snap exposes the missing link. Avery's mother was living under a fake name. She was actually Hannah, the sister of the girl who died in the island fire. Toby stayed dead to protect Hannah. He knew that if he ever returned, his father would use the Hawthorne billions to bury his sins, and Toby refused to let that happen to the woman he loved. The inheritance forces a reckoning for the collateral damage the Hawthornes caused to Avery's family 2 decades ago. Reading Toby's journals from his teenage years reveals a sudden shift. At 16 years old, his writing changes from a childish scrawl to a record of fury. On a bedroom wall, a single phrase under the blacklight changes everything. They lied. Toby had discovered a secret his parents never intended for him to know. He was adopted. This discovery carries a heavy biological weight. Toby shares no DNA with the man who built Hawthorne House or the family who lives there. The conclusion is undeniable. Even if Avery is Toby's daughter, she possesses zero Hawthorne blood. She is not an heir by birthright. If Avery isn't the billionaire's granddaughter, the reason he gave her everything remains the most dangerous puzzle in the house. Avery follows her mother's history out of the mansion and into the real world. She tracks the trail to a small house in Jackson, Mississippi. Toby confirms the truth about her mother, but his message is a warning. He won't return, and he tells Avery that she must stop looking for a man who is already a ghost. Chasing this history is lethal. Avery is kidnapped by an antagonist seeking revenge for the fire on the island, a reminder that the Hawthorne meme attracts violence. Inheriting the Hawthorne fortune means inheriting their enemies. Avery has already survived kidnappings and bombs. Now she must decide if she's willing to become as ruthless as the billionaire who chose her. Tobias Hawthorne Sr. didn't pick Avery for her bloodline. He picked her because she was the only person with a rare combination of high intelligence and a strong moral compass. As this coin reaches the peak of its arc, the old man's final gamble becomes clear. Avery was the only one who could find Toby, settle the family's debts, and hold the empire together without being destroyed by it. Avery steps into a courtroom, secures her independence, and officially takes the throne of Hawthorne House. She is no longer a pawn in a dead man's game. She is the one writing the rules. The Hawthorne legacy is a study in power. It demonstrates how a single girl, chosen for her brilliance, can navigate a maze of generational trauma and outplay the ghost of a billionaire. 18-year-old Avery Grams is weeks away from inheriting $40 billion. But before she can reach the finish line, the man she spent months trying to protect is snatched from the estate, and the fragile safety of Hawthorne House shatters. Avery is legally bound to live in the booby-trapped mansion for 1 year to secure the fortune. As her 18th birthday approaches, the 4 Hawthorne grandsons, Jameson, Grayson, Nash, and Xander, are pulled back to the house by a threat that targets the very heart of their family. An anonymous kidnapper delivers a riddle framed around the parable of the prodigal son. In the biblical story, a wayward child is welcomed home by a forgiving father. But in this game, the story serves as a map for a decades-old grudge. Inside one of the library's fireplaces, Avery finds a triangular mirror. The object acts as a pointer toward a specific, ruthless chess strategy, the Queen's Gambit. It's a move defined not by defense, but by a calculated, aggressive sacrifice to dictate the rest of the match. This diagram shows the mechanics of the opening. The player playing white moves this isolated white pawn into a vulnerable position, offering it up to the opponent. By sacrificing the pawn, white gains total control over the center of the board and forces the opponent to play on their terms. In this posthumous war, the identity of the kidnapper is only half the problem. The real challenge is realizing that Tobias Hawthorne, the dead billionaire who designed the inheritance, had already placed his pieces, and he had already decided which one had to be sacrificed. Avery and the grandsons deconstruct the prodigal son riddle to find their opponent. If Toby is the wayward son and Tobias is the father, the riddle focuses on the third character, the faithful brother who stayed behind and felt cheated when the father rewarded the one who betrayed him. This role points directly to the Blakes, a family Tobias Hawthorne systematically destroyed to build his empire. Vincent Blake, the patriarch, has spent 40 years acting as the avenging son, waiting for the moment Tobias was gone to settle a blood debt that the inheritance was designed to trigger. The feud began when Will Blake, Vincent's son, was caught exploiting a 16-year-old girl named Mallory under Tobias Hawthorne's protection. Tobias didn't call the police. He viewed the act as a personal violation of his territory. Hawthorne ensured Will Blake never returned to his family, then used his massive resources to cover up the death. He gambled his morality to bury the truth, a move that protected the Hawthorne name, but left the Blakes with a missing heir and a lifetime of unanswered questions. Toby eventually discovered the buried remains and fled the family in horror. He spent decades in hiding, but by stealing the evidence of the murder, he effectively lit a match to the Hawthorne legacy, ensuring that one day the fire would return to consume the house. This game was never about the money. It is the climax of a multi-generational blood feud, where the sins of the father have finally come due, and Avery is caught in the middle of the fallout. After locating a hidden tomb on the property, Avery recovers a final audio tape recorded by Tobias Hawthorne in the weeks before his death. It contains the ultimate explanation for why she was brought into this house. Tobias Hawthorne's final tape reveals a cold, strategic calculation. He expected Vincent Blake to attack whoever held the keys to the fortune. He named Avery as his heir to act as a human lightning rod, drawing Blake's hostile arrows away from his grandsons. As the Blakes converged on her, the 4 Hawthorne grandsons would return to defend the house, encircling the threat and trapping the attackers. Hawthorne designed Avery to function as a singular tool, a unifying force intended to pull his fractured, competitive grandsons back together to face their true enemy as a single, cohesive unit. Avery was never the protagonist of a fairy tale inheritance. She was the pawn intentionally offered for sacrifice in a dead billionaire's ultimate Queen's Gambit. After surviving Blake's final trap, Avery realizes that keeping the $40 billion means preserving the manipulative, poisonous tree of the Hawthorne legacy. She sees that the money is the weight keeping the family locked in their grandfather's games. Avery chooses to reject the role of a pawn. She takes control of the board by dismantling the very thing everyone is fighting for, effectively flipping the board on Tobias Hawthorne's original design. This chart illustrates her fatal loaf. Avery is systematically fracturing the $40 billion fortune. She is redirecting the vast majority of the estate into global philanthropic funds, stripping the money of its toxic weight, ensuring it never becomes a weapon again. She puts the Hawthorne grandsons to work, deploying their brilliant minds to manage the philanthropic effort. For the very first time, they have a true purpose that exists entirely outside their grandfather's shadow and his manipulative games. Avery uses a small portion of the remaining funds to launch her own project, an annual high-stakes puzzle contest with life-changing prizes. It honors the intellectual challenge she grew to love, but on her own terms. Avery didn't just survive the billionaire's trap, she conquered the throne. She ended the blood feud, saved the family, and permanently rewrote the rules of the game to play as the game maker. Inheriting a multi-billion-dollar fortune failed to solve the Hawthorne brothers' psychological crises. The sudden wealth removed the competitive pressure defining their lives. Avery Grams now commands the Hawthorne fortune. While she manages the estate, Jameson and Grayson are left without a function. They were raised to be elite players in an endless series of puzzles, and now the master architect is gone. To navigate this void, the brothers must engage in new, high-stakes conflicts. These aren't tests of logic, they're tests of their internal stability. Tobias Hawthorne's lasting legacy was a relentless psychological drive to manipulate and control. This internal engine pushes both brothers to dig into the hidden histories of their own biological fathers. Jameson enters a secretive, high-stakes game in London where the players compete for information. The ultimate prize is an entry in a ledger, a piece of blackmail powerful enough to destroy a member's life. Grayson's investigation is personal. He discovers that his deceased father lived a double life under the name Tobias Davenport, leaving behind twin daughters that Grayson never knew existed. Their objectives are mirrored opposites. Jameson is playing to unearth a secret. Grayson is playing to bury one. Both brothers are instantly trapped by the actions of the previous generation. They are forced into a dual investigation, racing to resolve the crimes their fathers left behind. Jameson begins his pursuit at the Vantage Estate, an architectural maze built onto a cliffside. He scans the marble arches and golden basins, searching for patterns his grandfather taught him. Applying the Hawthorne rule, he spots a specific children's book, The Smuggler's Caves, connecting the title to the surrounding cliffs. Inside, he finds a pressed poppy and a message in dark purple ink, "Ladies first." This provides his next coordinate. Jameson's focus is total. The thrill of the solve overrides his instincts for self-preservation, proving that the puzzle is the only thing that makes him feel alive. This reliance on analytical training shows that Tobias Hawthorne is still effectively directing his grandson's life. The old man didn't just raise a boy, he built a specialized tool for problem-solving. While Jameson solves riddles, Grayson is executing a clinical cover-up. He needs to erase his father's criminal history before it can touch his half-sisters. Grayson uncovers evidence of his father's extreme paranoia. He finds a hidden compartment protected by glass vials of liquid, designed to mix and destroy the records if the box is opened incorrectly. To decode the journal, Grayson matches withdrawal slips against a series of photos. The numbers reveal 7 untraceable offshore accounts, totaling millions of dollars in illegal assets. Grayson methodically dissolves these ties. He melts the physical evidence and severs every connection to the authorities, ensuring the secret dies with him. Grayson's drive to atone for his past betrayals makes him the ultimate anti-player. He doesn't want to win the game, he wants to destroy the board so his family can finally be safe. Victory in the London game leads Jameson to a realization that touches the very beginning of the Hawthorne family history. Jameson brings Avery to a rebuilt childhood treehouse. He chooses to share his discovery with her, breaking the cycle of information hoarding that his grandfather practiced. He uses an old Scrabble board to spell out the discovery. It's a childhood relic used to convey a truth that should be impossible. The tiles reveal the truth about their grandmother. Alice Hawthorne is alive. This revelation proves that the brothers are still part of a larger active game. Their grandfather's final plan never actually ended. For Grayson, the resolution is emotional. He has buried his father's sins and, in the process, found a way to stay connected to his sisters without the need for deception. He examines a black opal ring, a piece of jewelry representing a shift in perspective. He is no longer focused solely on damage control. Grayson finally asks himself, why not me? It's the first time he has chosen vulnerability over the rigid control he used to survive. But as the brothers move toward independence, a new threat is forming. Eve finds herself in total control of the Blake estate following the death of Vincent Blake. By choosing to trust each other, the brothers have finally moved out of their grandfather's shadow. However, that shift leaves them exposed as Eve takes command of her own inheritance and the power that comes with it. On a desolate beach, a man with no memory sits in the sand, tracing complex grids and geometric traps before the tide washes them away. The woman watching him calls him Harry. His real name is Toby Hawthorne. His desperate compulsion to create puzzles out of nothing reveals the core of this universe. To understand this family, we have to look past the billions in their bank accounts and study how they play. we are treating the short stories in games Untold as behavioral case files. By analyzing the rules they set and the challenges they design, we can decode the specific motives driving their every move. Within the Hawthorne family, a puzzle functions as a high-stakes attempt to truly know another person and allow themselves to be known in return. Let's start with Toby Hawthorne. Stranded on an island, he and Hannah avoid their harsh reality through constant competition. They play the not a single glare challenge to test their emotional restraint and spend hours battling over a custom-carved set of three-dimensional checkers. Toby's mind is a blank slate. By obsessively designing these mechanical traps and elaborate board games, he builds a psychological shield. The strict rules provide a sense of order that protects him from the void of his missing past. This diagram illustrates the final anagram Toby leaves for Hannah to solve. He presents the phrase, "a very risky gamble," which shifts to reveal the name Avery Kylie Grams. Shortly after delivering that answer, Toby vanishes from the island, leaving behind nothing but a stack of postcards written in invisible ink. This act bridges his isolated existence directly to Avery's arrival at the Hawthorne estate. Designing these challenges was his only reliable way to articulate a vital truth that his own brain could no longer remember. We see this same dynamic play out on the streets of Prague. Here, Avery and Jameson engage in an intense 5-step wager against a midnight deadline. The mechanics require Avery to use a highly specific inventory: a key, a knife, a postcard, and a blacklight. She must navigate hidden doors in a luxury hotel suite, using the tools to reveal secret layers within the room's decor. The game board spans the entire city. The path winds through various landmarks, eventually stopping at the vibrant graffiti of the Lenin Wall. Her journey brings her to this steel tower and a dizzying mirror maze. To win, Avery has to use her blacklight to find invisible ink written directly on Jameson's skin, meaning the only way to solve the puzzle is through physical proximity. Jameson designs these lethal, high-speed games as a way to lower his guard. By creating a challenge where Avery must search his own body for the answer, he replaces traditional vulnerability with the shared rush of a secret. Back at Hawthorne House, even the holidays are competitive. The 4 Hawthorne brothers participate in a secret Santa tradition that operates as a high-stakes, paranoid game of assassins. The rules are strict. Players draw a sibling's name as their target. They are to eliminate their opponent by tagging them with a squirt gun loaded with a festive red liquid. Grayson and Jameson approach the hunt with aggression and constant surveillance. Xander, meanwhile, retreats into a psychological game called Go No Go, using a plush narwhal and a cupcake to determine his partner's preferences from the safety of a blanket fort. Their billionaire grandfather, Tobias, was a master manipulator who lied to them their entire lives. This ruthless interfamily warfare is a direct response to that discovery. By weaponizing their childhood games, the brothers establish a set of rules they can actually control, creating a baseline of trust in a legacy built on deception. Toby's island isolation, the brothers' holiday warfare, and Avery's wagers share a single root cause. They are all symptoms of a desperate need to find structure in a volatile world. These motifs connect the stories across generations. Whether an etched token, invisible ink, or an anagram, their communication remains constant. Recognizing these patterns provides context to navigate upcoming trials in the grandest game, exposing the internal logic used when the next board is set. Readers are drawn to the Hawthornes for the same reason Avery is, because in the end, we are all addicted to the danger of a puzzle that refuses to be solved.